Hello, everybody. This is Steve Carey with AI Made Easy, and I am delighted to have this special guest on with me today. She's a business strategist. She helps small business companies and business owners in her market implement technology and utilize AI. Please welcome Shelly Berman Rubera. Hi,
Hey,
Shelly.
Steve. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really intrigued and excited to have this conversation with you.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And one of the reasons I am so interested and excited to have this conversation is because you've unlocked a lot of different ideas in my mind about how to approach people who may be hesitant or resistant to utilizing AI. And you work with a specific market, and I don't want to make it too generic, but I know that you specialize in helping small business owners, especially for those above 50. When I think about that demographic in particular, I my suspicion is that they're probably not on the front end of adopting AI. Am I correct in thinking that?
Absolutely.
One of the things that has intrigued me about this is that you have taken a leadership role in representing the march into AI. And I'm really curious about how you personally got started with AI. How did you first get exposed to it? And what were some of the early things that you did and that led to that aha moment that you realized like, oh, wow, this is big. I got to be part of this.
Yeah, great question, Steve. I've been self-employed for over 50 years. And as we all evolve, there were years when you spent days writing a proposal, and people still do that.
Mhm.
Days, right? We get stuck in the development rather than the delivery. And you get exhausted. There's so much to do, or even at the end of a client meeting, summary of notes, to-do list. What do I have to do? Follow up emails. I mean, you're working 24/7. There's enough to do. So probably good 3 or 4 years ago, I happened to follow Darby Rollins. Actually, I started to become intrigued with Jasper, which is an AI site. And then Darby was involved. He was the first user of it. So I started following him. But just in the doing, like just going into, at the time, Jasper and saying, I need this letter. And within 3 minutes, having everything I needed after 5 decades of nuts and bolts tasks, I was able to execute and execute well. And I have high standards. So it just became not only curious, effective, so effective that how could you not explore more?
Yeah. And you and I have similar journeys with respect to that aha moment, just because of the way that we got into AI. And I think it's relevant talking about it because as we record this, we're at the end of 2024. When you started using Jasper, that indicates to me that you were probably in the 2021, 2022 timeframe, which is early in the age of the AI era. And so the big takeaway that I heard from you is you have a lifetime of experience delivering and executing on business related projects. And in that short amount of time using Jasper, you realize that you're converting days of work into hours or minutes of work.
And what could that possibly do for your practice? What could that do for your business? And what can that do for your clients? I used to write a dozen newsletters a month. It's a lot of work. I can do that now in half the time. You still have to
Yep.
design and insert some images, but I think what's most important, I'm particularly curious. I'm a lifelong learner, and I really believe strongly in consequential thinking. If I do this, what will be the outcome of that? And so it's being curious enough and just trying new things. So it's in a very exciting time for us in business. It's there's no other time like now where business is hard to get, where delivering is hard to do, making enough money is hard to do. When you find one little Christmas gift underneath your tree and it's called AI, it's a blessing. However, we do know, Steve, that people are afraid of it. They don't really know what it is or what it can do.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because you and I are firmly in the camp of, yes, we see the importance of this technology and where it's taking us. Let's talk about the people that you serve. And you mentioned that there's a lot of apprehension about it. Do you have an example of a client story where they came to the table and they had this before and after experience with regards to AI?
Yes, I have a number. And I just want to say something about fear. Most fear is of the unknown, right? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, anywhere in the world. We don't know what's going to happen when we walk out the door. So fear of unknown, you have two things. You can hide and say, I'm not doing that. Or you can say, wow, let's embrace that. Whether that be going on a hike to the highest mountain, or whether that be opening up your computer and just trying AI. So fear of the unknown really just moves to taking some action. So I'll give you a great example. Yesterday, a client's been with me like 5 years. She came to the phone call literally like this. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it. I am exhausted. I'm never going to get through this. I had to leave work because I'm creating so much tension because I can't execute. Cheryl, what are you talking about? What's going on? Let's solve it. She holds up all this paper. She says, you see this? I don't even know what's in here. I have to get all of this done and I don't even know where to begin. I said, okay, are you willing to try AI with me? Very discouraged. She said, if you think it'll help, I don't know what to do. I said, okay, don't do anything different. I just want you to talk. Go through each paper and tell me what it is. So I just simply was in Chat GPT and I typed, talk to Pete, straighten out payroll with Mike, like whatever it was. And then I asked Chat GPT, I can share easily. At the end of that, before I show you what I did, was I asked Chat GPT, based on this content, please organize and prioritize these tasks. And if I wish I could describe to you the face that she had on. So can you see this, Steve?
I can.
Okay, awesome. So here's what I just did. Freelance, based on this content, please categorize and list the tasks I need to organize and prioritize this content. Compare suppliers' pricing. Read all the notes from Jim in Miami. Review all retractables from 2024 to 25. So that kind of a list, right? To organize and prioritize your tasks effectively, here's a categorized and structured list. Look at this. Broke it in, I never said the word admin tasks, analysis and reporting, pricing and inventory, operations and workflow, technology and equipment, team collaboration, financial and payroll, miscellaneous tasks to do with Jim in Miami, prioritization recommendations. And then it said, would you like assistance creating time flows, workflows, or templates? Please show us a workflow. And then it went on to this.
Beautiful.
So, beautiful. So at the end of it, you have to see the client who's been with me 5 years. She's like, email me that. I want that. So excited. Then I'm also using Fathom, Fathom, as my meeting recorder. Well, I said, now, if you match this with what we said, you're going to have your whole game plan for a week. I promise you. Now you just have to go through and get them done. So the point of that story is didn't know about it, didn't know how to, she knew about it, didn't know how to use it, didn't have the bandwidth to try. And within 3 minutes, I gave her an organization for her to get things done.
Mm-hmm. Let me pause right there and ask a question. How did she feel when you gave her that organized list of things to do?
She said she was going to marry me.
And I asked that question for a specific reason, but I think this is a common thread of things that I have seen. And it dispels a myth about AI that it is a technology tool that you have to be a techie person to use. And, or it's it just is there for content generation. And the example that you just shared showcases one of the most powerful attributes of the technology, which is it is there to serve us and enable us to perform at a higher level. In the example you just shared, she was overwhelmed, had a lot of things that she had to get done, and she couldn't just see through that. It was just an emotional roadblock. We've all felt that. And we know that executing on any of those tasks is well within her capacity to do. And it's probably not that complicated. But when you get overwhelmed, there's a lot of pressure. It's hard to find focus and it's hard to prioritize. And if you have somebody there to help you, then it becomes easy, it becomes realistic, and it becomes achievable. And what you just did with that person is gave her access to that assistant that helps her make it achievable and realistic. To me, that
Right.
is like a huge win that is different than the typical, hey, this will save you time because it'll write an email for you.
Because we are so overwhelmed in today's work that if we don't find a way to adapt to new technology and new skills, we will be left behind. There's no way you can't keep up with it. Your dream is to get bigger and more clients. How are you going to do that? And I'll be transparent about myself. I love these little notes. They're post-it notes, but the particular size, they have a graph design on them. But at the end of it, these are my priorities, right? So I'm busy working. What do I have to do for Steve? And I'll just pull another page. But at the end of the day, I could have 8 pages. So then I would get on my bed and then I would reorganize and prioritize, pick my top 3 things that had to be done the minute I got up. And now, since I've been doing that, I don't have to do that at night. I don't have to work all day, get into bed and work more. The last thing I do before I leave is take all these notes, put them into that chat, and I get an organized list of what I have to do.
Oh, I love that.
And I throw all of this out. And you know how you get that satisfaction of drawing a line through something you've achieved? It's just a great
Yeah,
feeling. You know what it's like to throw each one of these of the day in the bucket? It's great.
I agree. I, I love that example too, because it's a personalized example of how you have found a way to make AI relevant in your life. Everybody works and thinks differently. And you just described your process that creates order in your life, makes you feel good, and aligns with your personality tendencies. And you just introduced a method to include AI in that to not only save time, but to free up portions of your day, like that evening time in bed, you can relax, but you've utilized AI as an assistant to help you stay organized.
Right. And there'll be more about an AI coming out where you can actually train an assistant. But for the purpose of our conversation today, it's actually having an open mind to learning AI. It's taking it little bits at a time, like getting a list organized, all the way to, we'll give you another example, which is important, I think. Client named Susan. And so her concerns around ethical, being ethical or not, about is it cheating? How do I use this? So today we were talking about her packaging and her offers. And she said her client is completely overwhelmed, can't even function. She's got so much. She's taken a new job. She cannot be productive, borderline maybe burnout because it's too much. So I showed Susan what I did with Cheryl. And Susan was just, you think about it, coming from a background where the rules and the parameters, like financial advisors, so many rules, right? I showed her
Mhm.
that. And she said, "You just gave me a gift. Not only can I do that for myself, but I can't wait to show this to her." And that was how I also was able to explain to her that you have to learn AI, you have to integrate it into your practice, because if you don't, someone else will show them.
One of the themes that's coming out of this is that there are a lot of different reasons why people are hesitant to even try AI. It's not that they tried and didn't get much out of it. They are reluctant or even resistant to utilizing this tool to help them. So part of what you're doing is introducing them to an immediate outcome that's going to provide a positive result right away.
Solution right away.
So
And
I was going to
another
say,
client I'll quickly say to you,
okay,
his name is Bill, and he is a residential appraiser. And again, this poor guy, so busy, and his office manager went to Europe for a month and like, "Shelly, what do I do?" I said, "Well, what's the number one thing you need?" He said, "I had a great introduction. I have to follow up. Someone said, Debbie said, call whatever his name was. You'd be great referral partners." He said, "That was 2 weeks ago. I haven't done the letter." I said, "Okay, what's the guy's name? Who's the woman's name? What's the purpose?" I said, I couldn't do it in the moment. I said, "I'll have it to you this afternoon." Wrote him a letter introducing himself. He called me back and he said, "I must owe you more for that." I, my clients have good sense of humors. And I said, "No, but I do want to show you how to do that, because you don't need me for that. And you don't need to take a week of it sitting on your to-do list." So if we go to that point, can we talk about context? Like,
absolutely. Absolutely.
how do you talk to chat or perplexity? How do you talk to them?
Yeah, let's do it. Guide me through what you're thinking about with context.
So no different than people are mind readers, AI is not a mind reader. You have to really think about the context in which you're teaching AI what to do. The sentence I love is based on this content, right? Based on this content. Then you set the structure. I'm a business strategist. I need an outreach letter. The client is ABC, and this is what the client needs. Can you write me a paragraph, an opening, warm, and compelling paragraph that would allow me to introduce my services to this new client? So
Yeah.
if you have to feed it, right? I just had the image of a little kid. The kid can't eat his own food, so you have to feed him the food. So it's the same thing. You have to feed chat the context of which you're working, who you are, who they are, and what outcome you want. Then you will get good results.
Yep. And I'm so happy you brought that up because what you're doing and how you're talking about it, it makes it so approachable. And I keep going back to this idea of everybody needs to utilize AI. And regardless of where you are in your life, especially if you're not somebody who is natively going to utilize technology or you're overwhelmed, just like the examples you brought up, how do you get started? So yeah, you've realized with your help, maybe one of your clients is coming to the table thinking, okay, you've convinced me, Shelly, I need to start getting on this. But then they get to the next step, which is how in the hell do I start? What do I do? And you've just shown that it's actually not that difficult to get good results if you just start simply. And I think there's a tendency in the industry to overcomplicate all of this because the information and knowledge that is being shared and disseminated is still originating from the engineers and technologists who develop this. And then everybody's regurgitating, but it's still layered with all this tech. And with for somebody who's just coming to this realizing like I know I need to use this and I'm a reluctant user, the last thing that they need is terminology and complicated instructions about how to use it. They need super simple examples of how they can save time, get results, and be repeatable.
And get
And
what they
everything that
need. Yes. Yes.
and everything that you just brought up is exactly that. It's super high impact and it's very quick and simple and they get what they need.
And you made me think of something that you and I talked about before. There are people, including my 65-year-old client, who, when I started talking about business development, I said something about, and of course we need to do SEO. And she was kind of embarrassed and she said, "So I'm sorry, but I don't know what SEO is." I said, "You don't have to be embarrassed." So the assumption, because you and I are in the world of business development and client interaction, we can never assume that people even know what AI is or
That's right.
SEO or the big bad web. People don't know. And so there has to be a place where, and educators like you and I, who have no judgment, no concern what you know or you don't know. She said, "I don't know what SEO is." I said, "No problem. It's search engine optimization." Like, I never shame anybody. I mean, it's okay not to know, right? I'm the
That's
one
right.
supposed to bed with a business book every night. You don't have to do that. So I think, no shame, no blame. You don't have to be advanced, but more you have to go back to what would make my life easier, and can some piece of technology or AI make that better? And then being curious enough to learn it. And again, even knowing where to start to learn it is challenging.
Yes, it is. I've had that discussion many times during even just the last 3 weeks. I've had a number of people come up to me and ask, I want to really dig into AI. Where do I start? What do I do? And my answer is always this: use it every day and try to make a habit out of it. So, in my mind, 30 days, use AI every day at the beginning of the day, and a number of things will happen. Number one is the first time you use it, you will save an hour. If you come to the table with a issue that you have that you need help with and you utilize AI, that number one day, you will save an hour. And then day two, you do it again, you save another hour. But what really happens is you start to shift your mindset to an AI first mindset, which is a big leap. So it doesn't happen after one or two uses, it happens after repeated daily use. And you start to think differently because AI becomes an assistant in the end, where you may enter that conversation with AI as just a tool or technology to help me get something done, like writing an email. But once you utilize it multiple days in a row, that transition happens in your mind. I've seen it happen and it's amazing because that aha light goes off and you realize then that these people who start to leverage AI think about it differently. They think about having an expert on hand or an infinite level of experts on hand 24/7. And it unlocks in their mind it unlocks in their mind the possibilities of what they can do as an individual and a team. And that doesn't happen until you utilize it for a while. That's my opinion on it.
So with that, let me give you a couple of quick examples, right? One is that same client, Cheryl. They own an awning company, but they also own something called AC&B, and that's custom covers, right? For your grill, for your patio furniture. And that's not an
Sure.
easy sell, because why can't I just go to Home Depot and get something, right?
That's right. It's
So
all custom.
so I'm looking and I'm thinking to myself, who else? We need a segmented marketing. So we decided boats, right? So they're in the North Shore, they're near New Hampshire. I went into Perplexity, which is a huge search engine, maybe becoming more powerful than Google. And I said, give me 10 boating, like yacht clubs, in a 20-mile radius of X, New Hampshire, wherever she is. I literally in 1 second was able to turn to her salespeople. I want one of each one of you to call on them, pay a visit, bring some samples, and get in front of the boat owners. They've been trying to do this ineffectively for 2 years, right? Make a segmented list, find out where they are, email them, phone call them, drive by the trailer, do it. That was one thing that was just pretty incredible. And I was able to put the whole team to work around that project. And then, in full transparency, I am rewriting a book. I have the book on Amazon and I'm rewriting it and I'm rewriting it and I'm rewriting it and I'm rewriting it and printing it and rewriting it. And so finally I said to myself, I want to see what happens if I give Claude an example. And so the book is broken out into case studies. So it's what's the challenge, what's the solution, and what's the outcome. So I gave them the context and I said, the chapter is commitment. Here are the chapter titles. Here are even 10 case studies I wrote. Please expand on them, make them compelling, and give me them. Steve, my book is almost done.
I love
60
that.
studies, 60 case studies. Now, of course, this is a very important point that's near and dear to both your heart and my heart. Nothing AI gives me is mine until I put it through Grammarly, until I read it and highlight it and make sure it's mine. It's not AI. It's not generative. And I don't
Yeah,
want AI to write my book. It's my book.
right.
But
Yeah,
what if I had a book writing assistant next to me? It's not really different, except it's so expedient.
absolutely agree with all of that. And it's just the part that thrills me about this is you have aspirations and ambitions and you are a doer. And a book is a huge task. And I know you've been working on it for a long time. And you talk about the rewriting cycle and you just shortcutted that time that normally would take weeks, months, a year even. And you shortcutted that and you got rid of all the barriers to get to
I
the
did.
next step of editing. And I think that's the big takeaway is AI isn't writing the content for you. It's taking the content that you already have and it's leveraging that, but it's getting you through a blocker because when you work on something like this in isolation, you're doing it at the end of the day, probably when you have time. And it's always the thing that you're doing after everything else is done.
Right.
You're probably not at your best thinking self at
Right.
that moment. And you can inverse that with the help of AI. And like you said, you've got an assistant that's helping you write this book. And now you've executed and got something done. And you move past that part where you get into the editing and finishing.
And don't
And
forget, it energizes me. I'm excited. I'm literally excited at the end of it. I'm encouraged. Everybody needs help. You just need to think about who's going to help you. How am I going to get the help? And then there's that piece that is near and dear to both of us, which is that talk I wrote, The Intersection of AI and Human Relations. And so we need to learn how to build a relationship with these tools, not have them write my book, but what is the intersection of what's mine and where is my help? But I'm not giving up control or authorship. I'm just getting help.
that's right. I, so I think as we wind this conversation down, I want to touch on a few themes that have emerged. And I think it's so important to highlight these because on one hand, you've got all of the examples of how you can use AI and they're infinite, but you brought up a number of them today. They have an immediate impact. They save time and they remove a big worry or frustration from your clients. But the bigger theme behind this is AI is not just a piece of software. It is an assistant that can help you. It is something that can help you operate at a higher level. You talked about becoming energized because you're producing and you are operating in your work at a level that is in your zone of genius, for lack of better words. And if you can reside in that zone for a higher percentage of time throughout the day, you're unstoppable. You can do so many things and it feels good to operate there. and you utilize AI to help you get through those areas where it's a working frustration or it's an energy drain. And that's when you really depend on AI to help you get through. Just like your examples with your clients, they were frustrated, they were frozen because they were overwhelmed, not because anything was too difficult, just because there's too much. And
Much.
you have AI, you insert AI at that moment, and it gets them through, and all of a sudden they can go right back up to their where they're operating in their zone of genius. And to me, that is the subtle but super obvious gift of AI. And that's the developing an AI mindset. That's when you learn that AI is there to help me operate in my zone of genius. And when you
And there's
get to
nothing to
that,
be
that's right. Absolutely nothing to be afraid of. So I think the mission that you and I have, and I think it's huge. And for me, this is it's so important. But the mission is to help people get started with AI. No matter how they get there, they need help because you talked about all the barriers. There's fear, there's the uncertainty, they just don't have
technical,
time, they're
technical or
overwhelmed.
not technical. Right.
And they think it's for people who are tech, or they need to be tech oriented. And you're showing them that they don't need to be. You're showing them that you can utilize this amazing technology to solve real world problems, and they don't need to be a tech person. And that's the mission that we have is we need to do what we're doing, but we need to multiply that a thousandfold for a massive impact. Because what you brought up earlier, and I firmly believe this, is if you're not utilizing AI in your business, you will get left behind because the world that we are operating in now and your competition is accelerating. And if you try to catch up after a year or two more, it's going to be extremely difficult to be relevant in your business if all of your competitors are utilizing AI.
I think there's 2 points to that. One is that it's coming at us daily. Oh, and I'm guilty of it too. Oh, what does this one do? Oh, what does that one do? Oh my gosh, that I've really had to kind of pull the shade down, pick maybe 5. I am involved with the group that you're involved with, so we're constantly learning. But I noticed yesterday, so if we know that life is fight, flight, or freeze, right? I
Mhm.
noticed yesterday when I got into bed that I was better to the degree that my mind usually can't shut it off, but I already organized my week, executed. I was right on top of delivery for every client. And that when I got into bed, I'm like, what do I have to do? What do I have to do? And then I thought, you're good. You're good. Now you need to learn to relax. You're good. So that's a whole other skill that we have to learn. That if we're able to get stuff done, now how do we relax? So
Yep.
start small, finding, I don't even care if you start with organizing. Here's my grocery list. Please organize them by department. Even that's going to help you walk through the fruit aisle.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can't be afraid to learn. You can't be afraid to learn or find someone to teach you. That's what both of you and I are interested in, this 50 plus population. Please don't be afraid to learn. It's not technical in the way that you can spend hours of learning. You just have to get in there and do. Ask
That's right.
ChatGPT to write a letter to my aunt, you know, something like that, but just do it.
I agree. Just start. And I think the thing I'd like to end on is something that you brought up early is that there's no shame for not knowing something. And there's no reason that you should be expected to know any of this, but it is important to start. And I think that's holding a lot of people back.
Just be
So
curious enough to start. Curiosity, just be curious. Maybe what this could do for me.
I love it. Well, I thank you so much for all the time that you spent today with me talking about your experience and the clients that you serve. and how you are introducing them to AI, you are making a massive impact that is yet to be realized by your clients because as you
We
fast
are.
forward 1, 2, or
We
3
are.
years, they are going to be very, very thankful that you introduced them to this and it's life changing.
It
So
is. And it's fun. Really, it's
that it
fun to
is.
be productive, fun to execute. Work has never been this much fun. Maybe when I owned a dance school, but fun.
I agree. Well, thank you again. And
Thank you very much. It was a great conversation. Proud to be
all
with
right.
you.
Lovely to have you.